Ever walked past a building completely done up in scaffolding? Maybe a big sign out front, restoration in progress. Makes you wonder, what's actually going on in there? Who's calling the shots? Well, that's what we're diving into today, the surprisingly interesting world of restoration project management.
It is more interesting than people might think.
Right. And we've got this CARSI article, really lays out the essentials.
Oh, CARSI is a great resource for this.
So it was going to break down what they have to say, give you a little peek behind those construction fences.
Because it's not just about fixing what's broken,
Yeah.
It's a whole other animal.
Exactly. It's not like slapping up a new coat of paint. This CARSI article, they talk about needing all these skills, risk management, historical preservation.
It's a huge responsibility.
Makes you wonder, what does a restoration project manager actually do all day? It's got to be more than just, hand me that hammer.
Think of them more like the conductor of an orchestra. But instead of musicians, it's architects, contractors, historians even. Everybody's got to be playing in sync.
That's a great way to put it. So they're managing the budget, the permits.
And the curveballs. Gotta love those curveballs. Old buildings throw a lot of them your way.
I bet. Speaking of which, what happens when you run into those unexpected discoveries? Like, say you're restoring a historic building, beautiful old tiles, but surprise,
Yeah.
asbestos behind them throws a wrench in the whole thing, doesn't it?
Happens more often than you'd think. That's where a good project manager, they really shine. They anticipate those risks, know how to adapt without blowing up the whole project.
So you've got to be part historian, part construction manager.
Part diplomat, that's for sure. Especially when it comes to the client. Imagine explaining that, about those beautiful tiles. Gotta come out now.
Yikes. No wonder this CARSI article, they emphasize communication as a key skill.
Absolutely crucial. Can't just be about fixing what's broken, gotta manage expectations, emotions. Sometimes those are tougher than the actual construction work.
Makes sense. Not just a leaky faucet, it's a whole historical puzzle you're putting back together.
That's what makes it an art, really. Finding those creative solutions, honoring the past, but making sure the building's got a future too.
Definitely more to it than meets the eye. And speaking of learning the ropes, this CARSI article mentions their training programs.
They're really something.
So what would someone learn there that maybe they wouldn't just pick up on a job site?
Well, it's interesting because they really get into the nitty-gritty of restoration,
Right.
Not just here's how to manage a project, but here's how to look at historic building materials and understand what you're dealing with.
Ah, so you need that specialized knowledge. It's not just any old construction project.
Right. You're dealing with materials that might be 100 years old, different techniques, and then you've got modern building codes on top of that.
Trying to marry those two, I imagine that takes some creativity.
It's a delicate balance, that's for sure. You can't just slap on some modern fix and call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
Got to make sure it fits the building's history.
Yeah, you'd ruin the whole character of the place. And I imagine with those unexpected discoveries, that specialized knowledge comes in handy.
Oh, absolutely. It's like you said, you find a hidden fireplace or something, suddenly you're a historical detective. Got to figure out what they did back then, why they did it, so you can make the right call now.
So these CARSI programs, they teach you to be that detective.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
They emphasize research, documentation, really understanding the story of the building before you start swinging a hammer.
Fascinating stuff. So it's not just the technical skills, it's that appreciation for the history, the craftsmanship.
So it makes it so rewarding. You're preserving something for the future.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about what restoration project management is, but for someone listening who's thinking, okay, sounds cool, but I'm not going to go restore buildings. Why does this even matter? What's the takeaway for the average person?
Well, for one, even if you're just doing a regular renovation on your house, understanding these principles, it makes you a more informed homeowner.
So you can ask the right questions, make sure the contractors aren't pulling a fast one.
Exactly. And beyond that, I think it gives you a different appreciation for those older buildings you see around. You start to understand what went into them, the craftsmanship, the stories they hold.
Yeah, you start to look at them differently, not just a building, but a piece of history.
Exactly. And that's something worth preserving, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like these restoration projects, they're almost like a link to the past,
Keeping that connection alive, making sure those stories get passed down.
It's funny, I never thought I'd be this into old buildings, but here we are. Like you said, once you understand what goes into saving them, it's a whole different ballgame.
Changes how you see things, doesn't it? And it's not just those big landmarks either. Think about your own street, the houses, the schools, the corner store.
All got a story to tell.
Exactly. History right there on the walls. If walls could talk, right?
Right. Or maybe if the restoration project managers could tell us what they've seen.
Oh, I bet they got some stories. All the things they've found, the problems they've had to solve.
Mm-hmm.
A whole hidden world behind those restored facades.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to that. Next time I see one of those buildings under wraps, I'll be looking at it with a whole new level of respect. For the people working on it, I mean.
It's not just about preserving the past either. It's about making sure those buildings have a future, you know?
So true. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here today.
Hmm.
Maybe even inspired a few future restoration project managers out there?
You never know.
We've only just scratched the surface, really. But that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, everybody.